Hi, everyone, and welcome to God's Plan, Your Part, a podcast where our goal is to read the entire Bible in a year, seeking to understand God's plan of redemption while discovering daily and practically your part in it.
Hey guys, if you are in a place where you feel discouraged, if you feel like you need the Lord to move in your life because of the situations that are facing you, like you are serving the Lord and yet everything seems like it's not going well or the way you wished it would go, I think these couple of Psalms are going to be helpful for you today. Today we're looking at Psalm 56, 120, and 140 to 142.
So I think we should start out. It just is helpful for me to go in order with the chapters that we've read today.
Yeah.
So if we
Yeah,
start out in 56, it's this whole, well, it's a very short psalm. It's 13 verses. Just talking about, like, God is the one that we trust, regardless of the circumstances.
Yeah.
Basically, he's calling on God to be, like, a helpful guide to him. He's also praying that God will, like, take these enemies away from him, delivering him from the enemies that are like lie before him, but ultimately he will put his trust in God. And I think that's like really telling. It seems like so simple, but like trusting that God's going to take care of you, life or death, like I think that's like pretty deep.
So this is the easiest psalm today to link directly to David because in the title it says that this is from David when the Philistines seized him in Gath. Now that happens in 1 Samuel 21, which we read a couple days ago. But it's basically when David is running away from Saul and hides among the Philistines by acting like a crazy person. Mm-hmm. So it's really only, I think it's only 5 or 6 verses or something in 1 Samuel. It's not a very long piece, but there is a direct link because of the title of Psalm 56 to 1 Samuel 21. And so you can see directly what David is experiencing and what he's writing. So this idea that he can trust fully in God, no matter what, is really powerful.
Well, something else cool that I was thinking about with this chapter, although yes, all those things that we talked about earlier are true of this psalm, like trusting in the Lord regardless of circumstances, I also appreciate like the realness and like the raw sense of like, hey God, I feel really defeated. Like, he's very open about that. Like, there's a verse, it's kind of sad. Like, I feel bad, but verse 8, you have kept count of my tossings. Put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book? But then at the very end of the chapter, after he's saying, I trust in God, although, like, my enemies pursue me, like, my tears are bottled up and all this stuff. It ends with verse 12 and 13. 12 says, I must perform my vows to you, O God. I will render thank offerings to you, for you've delivered my soul from death. Yes, my feet from falling, that I may walk before God in the light of life. So, like, he's super real, but at the same time realizes, like, you've got this, God.
That is a theme in some of these Psalms that we're going to see, but it's also been something I've been trying to develop in my own life. Just actually explaining to God when I'm frustrated. I used to encourage people to be mad at God. I'm feeling more and more like that's a little bit goofy. I mean, God can,
it's almost like that
God
realness
can handle
piece.
It. Yeah, I think it's really good to be real. It's really difficult to be real if you don't actually spend time praying about your life.
Yeah.
Because then you end up in that like wheel of just praying for the things that you want when you're in like desperate need of them. So I think that regular prayer is really important. We know that Daniel prayed 3 times a day. We know that the early church, the first century church, they prayed 3 times a day. I think that's a really helpful model for us, not in a legalistic sense, but in a sense of just reminding us and God of what's going on in our lives. God knows what's going on in our lives, but it helps us with our active relationship with Him.
I always think of that correlation of like, you're really good friends. Like, you don't just talk to them every once in a while. Like, to remain good friends, you have to put in effort and time.
So then I think then on top of it, it's always helpful to actually express your concerns to God and be very real with them, but also at the same time express your submission to His authority and His plan. And I think we see that with David oftentimes. So why don't we go into the next one? We went into Psalm 120.
And this one, again, it's a little bit shorter, but it's also a little more of that raw that we're seeing, those raw emotions. It says, in my distress, I called to the Lord and He answered me. So he's just having a really hard time. But this one I noticed talks about more about deceitful language against what would have been against David. But I also feel like, I don't know, do you ever feel like you can be in that position too, where like you feel the oppression of like people's words against you?
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't
for
know,
sure.
like
Yeah.
that clearly, it's like, it's helpful because that clearly was really hindering David.
This is a super huge challenge for me, and I know very authentically and very realistically that I fall on the wrong side of this many times. It's very easy for me to think anybody that disagrees with me is like the person in this psalm. So it's like, oh Lord, these people keep coming after me. The reality is sometimes I'm actually wrong, and people are coming after me because I'm incorrect and I need correction. And so one of the cautions I would give you in going through these texts, it's good to trust in the Lord. Obviously, we find refuge in the Lord when people are coming against us, but it's radically important to find refuge in this when you know that you are trying to serve the Lord and the people who are deceitful and coming against you are not. That is a very significant prerequisite. You don't want to be applying these psalms when actually you are the one in error and you need to turn from your error. And I've seen that in my own life many times.
On that same token too, I think in this psalm you can probably put yourself in both positions too. Like, are you being the one with the deceitful tongue that is in turn making someone else just like feel completely defeated and struck down?
Yeah.
Or are you on the receiving end and like asking the Lord to please deliver you from it? Because that is a really awful place to be.
Yeah. This is a psalm of ascent. We're going to see a couple psalms of ascent, but these were specific songs written for people who were traveling to Jerusalem to worship the Lord in Jerusalem. So these would have been like a set of songs for that purpose. This one, people seem to believe, was for people that were considering that journey but had not actually committed to making it yet. So just a little bit of context for that short little psalm. Basically, taking rest and refuge in the Lord and looking forward to worshiping Him. So let's go to... Oh, sorry,
I was going to say, and then you come into 140 to 142. And I think something that we notice about the Psalms, or at least I do, is it's kind of like a roller coaster ride. Like, you're just like the ups and the downs and the ups and the downs.
Well, it's funny because
like,
if you think about like reading through, I don't journal. I probably should, to be honest. I've tried many times and have failed many times. But if I actually wrote down my feelings every day, it would be up and
very
down.
Similar.
I think I am more roller coaster prone than some people. But
but if you think too about how you process life, even like there are definite moments of this is awesome and then not so much. So basically what we have here is chapter 40 or 140, is again like this cry out for like the Lord to deliver David from enemies or evil men. Then we move into 141 where it's like, okay, just hear my voice, hear my call, Lord. And then finally 142 is in again recognizing that the Lord is a refuge. Something that stuck out to me though in 141 was verse 5. Where it says, actually, pause. It's verse 4 first. It says, "Do not let my heart incline to any evil, to busy myself with wicked deeds in the company of men who work iniquity, and let me not eat of their delicacies." So, we were talking about this earlier, where this is basically like when you are being, I guess, like almost cornered or made to be like a small percentage of people, right? Like you are the outsider of things. The temptation is to just kind of throw it all up in there, like, okay, whatever, I'll just join the rest of them because this is like too hard for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think just to add, I totally agree with what you're saying. I think to add one little piece to it is that don't forget this is about serving the Lord. Like it is radical commitment to God's plan that is in question. And so this is not, you don't want to oversimplify it, and you don't want to turn everyone that disagrees with you into demons. Right.
But if working for the Lord is like singled out to be like a bad thing, that's basically what this is saying. But the next verse is the one that got me. So after that, in verse 5, it says, "Let a righteous man strike me. It is a kindness.
Yeah.
Let him rebuke me. It is oil for my head. Let my head not refuse it. Yet my prayer is continually against their evil deeds." So basically, like, I really appreciated that because how often do we just kind of like fall off to the wayside with like things that are important to what we believe, but we kind of just like give in to the evil at times because we're just like, well, maybe it's actually not that important. Like, I want those people in my life that like smack me across the face and say, no, that's wrong. Like, you need to stick with what you believe in, what the Lord requires of you.
Who would those people be?
Oh, brother. Usually like spiritual mentors, like people who are living lives that I would like to
Have you had people like
emulate.
that you actually know?
I have. When I was in like high school, there was a lady that definitely invested in my life 100%. I definitely don't know her as well as I used to anymore. But she would be one that would have encouraged me in my spiritual walk and like investing time in scripture. Came alongside me in many different situations growing up. But she would have been one that I think would have definitely been like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Are you sure that's what you want to be doing right now?
Psalm 141 is definitely the psalm that sticks out to me for today. Like, as we've read over all of them, that's the one that got my attention the most, because it kind of sets up this idea of it is tempting to join those who are coming against you, because then they won't come against you. You'll be with them. So it kind of goes from this progression of, I was thinking about just giving up and joining them. And like, that actually seems like that would be easy, but I don't want to enjoy their delicacies. Then he moves into, you know what? If a righteous person is correcting me, I want to receive that because that is amazing for me.
Yeah. And
So
sometimes we don't. There's like so much hesitation and pushback when people are like, hey, that's not lining up.
It's so funny because I know for me, just trying to share about my own life, like, it's really easy for me to receive correction from like a book or a podcast or a video.
As soon as you put a person
As soon as you put a real person that I know, it's like,
But what about this?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not good. It's not good for me. And I too have had some people that are really positive people in my life. And I appreciate it deeply. I think sometimes my error is on the side of not accepting correction when I should.
Or being very
so
skeptical.
Being extremely, that's extremely me. I'm pretty skeptical and pretty cynical and pretty slow to just accept things for face value. But here David is saying like, hey, if a righteous person corrects you, receive it. Take it as oil on your head. Like oil, like what? I mean, oil on their head is kind of interesting in the ancient world because that's actually how they like took a shower essentially. But he also received oil on his head to make him the king. And so oil on your head is significant. So it's like, hey, receive correction.
Says, and let my head not refuse it.
Yeah, like take it.
But then the chapter ends with an interesting little like group of verses. In verse 9 and 10 is really interesting. It says, keep me from the trap that they have laid for me and from the snares of evildoers. And then it ends with this verse, let the wicked fall into their own nets while I pass by safely. So I think it's kind of just like, those things that horses wear? Like to keep them from seeing. Yeah, the blinders. That's like kind of how I see this. Like allowing yourself to be like totally immersed in God's instruction for your life.
Yeah.
Is a helpful thing to have. Prayer life for sure is like one of those little blinders because you're not distracted by those things because your eyes are set on God and the destination ahead of you, so that those snares and traps won't even be an issue for you. So your part for today would definitely be I would say if you don't have someone that you are like being invested or is not investing in you, I would strongly suggest like trying to find somebody who maybe at your church or maybe just like a strong spiritual Christian mentor in your life would be a helpful person to have to just kind of keep you with those like blinders on and like help you to stay fixated on what like the Lord has planned for you. And also like not just that, because we don't want to just like assume that person's just going to make it great for us, but also remembering to like continually call out to the Lord, recognize the things that are a struggle for you, and also recognize his power and authority in all situations. So remember those things today, especially as you might be feeling the tensions of maybe even standing up for the things that you believe, and what God, again, requires of us. So take that little nugget for today, and we'll see you guys back tomorrow.
Thanks so much for listening to our take today. Before we get into the reading, if we could just ask you one thing. If you've been enjoying the podcast, if you could subscribe to us and then leave a rating and review. We'd love to hear from you, and every rating we get helps us reach more people. Ultimately, we're just trying to reach people with the truth of God's word, and your review will help us do that. So thanks so much for being invested in the podcast. Here's the reading for today.
Psalm 56. Be gracious to me, O God, for man tramples on me. All day long an attacker oppresses me. My enemies trample on me all day long, for many attack me proudly. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust. I shall not be afraid. What can flesh do to me? All day long they injure my cause. All their thoughts are against me for evil. They stir up strife. They lurk. They watch my steps, as they have waited for my life. For their crime will they escape? In wrath, cast down the peoples, O God. You have kept count of my tossings. Put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book? Then my enemies will turn back in the day when I call. This I know, that God is for me. In God, whose word I praise, in the Lord, whose word I praise, in God I trust. I shall not be afraid. What can man do to me? I must perform my vows to you, O God. I will render thank offerings to you. For you have delivered my soul from death, yes, my feet from falling, that I may walk before God in the light of life. Psalm 120. In my distress I called to the Lord, and he answered me. Deliver me, O Lord, from lying lips, from a deceitful tongue. What shall be given to you, and what more shall be done to you, you deceitful tongue? A warrior's sharp arrows, with glowing coals of the broom tree. Woe to me that I sojourn in Meshech, that I dwell among the tents of Kedar. Too long have I had my dwelling among those who hate peace. For I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for war.
Psalm 140. Deliver me, O Lord, from evil men. Preserve me from violent men, who plan evil things in their heart and stir up wars continually. They make their tongue sharp as a serpent's, and under their lips is the venom of asps. Guard me, O Lord, from the hands of the wicked. Preserve me from violent men who have planned to trip up my feet. The arrogant have hidden a trap for me, and with cords they have spread a net. Beside the way they have set snares for me. I say to the Lord, you are my God. Give ear to the voice of the pleas for mercy, O Lord. O Lord, my Lord, the strength of my salvation, you have covered my head in the day of battle. Grant not, O Lord, the desires of the wicked. Do not further their evil plot, or they will be exalted. As for the head of those who surround me, let the mischief of their lips overwhelm them. Let the burning coals fall upon them. Let them be cast into fire, into miry pits, no more to rise. Let not the slander be established in the land. Let evil hunt down the violent man speedily. I know that the Lord will maintain the cause of the afflicted, and will execute justice for the needy. Surely the righteous shall give thanks to your name. The upright shall dwell in your presence. Psalm 141. O Lord, I call upon you. Hasten to me. Give ear to my voice when I call to you. Let my prayer be counted as incense before you, and the lifting up of my hands as the evening sacrifice. Set a guard, O Lord, over my mouth. Keep watch over the door of my lips. Do not let my heart incline to any evil, to busy myself with wicked deeds. In company with men who work iniquity, and let me not eat of their delicacies. Let a righteous man strike me, it is a kindness. Let him rebuke me, it is oil for my head. Let my head not refuse it. Yet my prayer is continually against their evil deeds. When their judges are thrown over the cliff, when they shall hear my words, for they are pleasant. As when one plows and breaks up the earth, so shall our bones be scattered at the mouth of Sheol. But my eyes are toward you, O God, my Lord. In you I seek refuge. Leave me not defenseless. Keep me from the trap that they have laid for me, and from the snares of evildoers. Let the wicked fall into their own nets, while I pass by safely. Psalm 142. With my voice I cry out to the Lord. With my voice I plead for mercy to the Lord. I pour out my complaint before him. I tell my trouble before him. When my spirit faints within me, you know my way. In the path where I walk, they have hidden a trap for me. Look to the right and see, there is none who takes notice of me. No refuge remains for me. No one cares for my soul. I cry to you, O Lord. I say, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Attend to my cry, for I am brought very low. Deliver me from my persecutors, for they are too strong for me. Bring me out of prison, that I may give thanks to your name. The righteous will surround me, for you will deal bountifully with me.
Thanks so much for listening to God's Plan, Your Part. If anything stuck out to you, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to receive a Bible, you can email us at godsplanyourpart@gmail.com. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please consider supporting us through the link in our description. We love that you're on this journey with us, and we hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.